Hey guys, it's Lucky Ghost here, and today I'm going to be going over the solo magicka necromancer vampire. That's kind of a mouthful, isn't it? This is a build that's been often requested, and I've been running vampire on stream for quite a while now, so it was the perfect time to create a solo vampire build. I ran it through Vodashun Hollows, and I'll be playing that in the background as I talk. This was a trifecta run. I got the trifecta on the first try with this build. It's fun and it's powerful, and it's real easy to dip in and out of the vampire skills whenever you want to. So let's check it out. My goal with this build was to be an insanely powerful necromancer that dipped into the vampire skill line at least 2 or 3 times. And we've successfully achieved that. Being a vampire has done amazing things for our sustain, especially in solo where sustain can be so tough to manage. In other words, we don't run out of magicka ever on this build, and we do a tremendous amount of damage. You do have to keep an eye on your health, but you do have a button you can press to get you out of just about anything. So let's talk about how I put this build together. I'll be going over the race, the mundus, the attributes, the consumables, gear, skills, rotation, passives, champion points, and more. So let's dive right in, and as always, I'll put a link to the written guide in the description down below for those of you that would like to follow along with a written guide. If you have any specific questions about the build, like traits or enchants, etc., you can find those very easily in the written guide. And for any question you can't find the answer to, I'm here for you. Just leave a comment and I'll be more than happy to answer it. All right, let's dig in. For the race, you can go for either Khajiit or Dark Elf. These are 2 incredibly popular choices right now. They do amazing things for both your stam and your mag, and they're great for solo. You could also go Breton for the increased sustain, or you could even go for High Elf. Any one of these 4 races are going to be amazing for you, with Breton being better with sustain with slightly lower damage output. As for the mundus, we're going to be going Thief for the extra crit chance. Our attributes are going to be all 64 points into magicka. As for our consumables, we're going to be using ghastly eyeball for the food. This is going to give us increased magicka recovery, and it's going to give us almost 4,600 extra magicka. That is a ton of magicka, which means you're going to get a ton of extra spell damage, because for every 1,000 magicka you get 100 extra spell damage. The great thing about ghastly eyeball is it's cheap, only 73 gold per. This is nothing. You should be using it pretty much right away. Grab yourself some of this as soon as you have 1,000 gold to spare, and go pick some up at a guild trader or have some made for you by a friend. Ghastly eyeball scales with you, so you can start using it at level 1, and I highly suggest that you use it as early as possible. It's going to make your leveling experience a lot more fun and a lot more fluid. If you're running out of magicka, it's probably because you're not using this food. Next up, our potion. We're going to be running Essence of Spell Power. Essence of Spell Power is going to give us major sorcery, increasing our damage by 20%. It's going to give us major prophecy, increasing our crit chance, and it's also going to restore 7,500 magicka while increasing our magicka recovery by 30%. All of this is very important for our character's damage. However, these are quite expensive. As you can see here, they're going for between 326 and 408 gold. Which means you don't want to use these unless you need them. So feel free to use the trash pots that you pick up off the ground whenever you're doing something easy. And then anytime you're doing something sweaty or something difficult like veteran content or solo arenas, you can go ahead and slot these big boy potions and do big damage. As for our attributes, we're going to go ahead and put all 64 points into magicka. And as I mentioned before, we are going to be taking vampire. I'm running stage 1 because, as you can see here, the downsides for each level of vampire can escalate pretty quickly. The upside to being a vampire is that it gives us access to some pretty cool skills like Blood Mist, Blood for Blood, and the Vampire Ultimate. It's worth noting that when you choose your vampire passives, some of them don't kick in until you hit vampire stage 2, 3, or 4. So be sure to read them before you invest points. If you're never going to be vampire stage 3, then don't put any points into Undeath, for instance, which requires you to be vampire 3 or higher to get the benefit. All right, next I'm going to give you a few options for gear. One being your starter gear, and then a version of this build that uses the Ring of the Bell order, and a version of the build that does not. On the jewelry and front bar, we're going to use Diamond's Victory. Diamond's Victory is a brand new set added with Blackwood. It's a craftable set, which means you don't have to go farm it. You can go straight to a guild trader and purchase it. And it happens to be best in slot for necromancers. This set is going to increase your spell damage by a ton. It's also going to increase your crit chance by a fair bit as well. It's a great set for necromancers, and it's really hard to pass up right now, not that we would want to. Both the melee and range supremacy effect on this set are procced by our blast bones, which we're going to be casting every 3 seconds. The buff lasts 5 seconds, so we get 100% uptime on those buffs, because every time we use blast bones, we proc it for 5 seconds, and we're casting blast bones every 3 seconds. It's a beautiful symmetry. You can pair with this a trial set if you would like Boss Eye. I do recognize that Boss Eye is a trial set, and some of you have no interest in doing trials just yet, or possibly ever. You want to solo and you only want to solo. If that's the case, then you can go ahead and put the tried and true Mother Sorrow on your body. Mother Sorrow can be farmed in Deshaun, and it's a fantastic set that's going to add a ton of crit chance to your character. For the helmet, we're going to be wearing Slime Craw's Guise. This is going to give us the highest amount of extra crit chance of any one piece set in the game. We're not going to be wearing 2 pieces of this monster set, just the 1 piece for the extra crit chance, because we don't have room for a second piece, because we're going to be pairing with this the Ring of the Pale Order. Ring of the Pale Order is going to give 20% of the damage we deal back to us in the form of health. In other words, for every dot that we're putting on the enemy, 20% of the damage that does counts as a heal for us. So as long as you've got all your dots down on the enemy or the boss that you're fighting, it's going to be very difficult for you to die. Make sure to get those dots down and start wailing away on the boss, and you're going to be indestructible. Pair that with some of the other abilities that we're taking advantage from the vampire line, and you'll find once you get comfortable switching between some of these abilities, you're going to be impossible to kill. If you find that you're still really struggling with your sustain in spite of all of the things this build has going for it in that area, feel free to replace Boss Eye or Mother Sorrow, whichever one you choose to wear on the body, with something like False Gods, which is a fantastic set for improving your sustain, and it's also going to give you Minor Slayer, just like every trial set does, which is going to be great for your damage. All right, now let's dive into what makes this character tick, its skills and its passives. The first skill, of course, Blast Bones. You cannot make a damage dealing Necromancer without Blast Bones, and frankly, why would you want to? This skill is a delayed time bomb. It does a ton of damage. It does it in a huge area. What more could you want from an ability? Blast Bones. Blast Bones is everything you need. It's everything you want. Make sure to cast this ability every third ability. So you're going to cast Blast Bones, then 2 abilities, and then you're going to come back to Blast Bones. And that will be the rotation for any DPS Necromancer, because this ability is so good that we want to cast it every time it's off cooldown. The cooldown is basically as long as it takes for the Blast Bones to explode. So you'll use this ability, and while it's doing its thing and waiting to explode, you're going to cast 2 other abilities, and by the time you've casted those 2 abilities, it should be time to cast the Blast Bones again. The second ability on the front bar is the first vampire skill that we're going to be taking advantage of on this character, Blood for Blood. Blood for Blood is a hard-hitting single target damage ability that scales based on how much health you have missing, up to 60% increased damage based on your missing health. After you cast this ability, nobody else can heal you except for yourself. Fortunately, since we're running this in solo content, that doesn't matter. We don't have a healer with us, our Ring of the Pale Order is ours, and our Mender is ours, and they're both going to be healing us just fine in spite of that. Now let's go back to the fact that this ability costs health, and this is one of the reasons our sustain on this character is so amazing. When we're running it as a vampire and using Blood for Blood as a spammable, 2,000 health that it costs is pretty much nothing, to be honest, especially with all the heals we have coming in. Our heals are basically overhealing us 100% of the time, so as soon as we use this ability, it's going to chunk our health down 2,000 health out of the 20,000 that we have, right? So only about 10% of our health goes missing, but it's instantly restored by our heal over time from our Ring of the Pale Order and our Spirit Mender. In other words, it's a free cast. We get to just do free damage. It costs none of our resources, so you're going to find that you have a very hard time running out of magicka unless you're overcasting some of your other abilities that actually cost magicka. So make sure not to cast those abilities until they've completely fallen off. The next ability on our front bar is Mystic Siphon. This ability is going to do 3 things for us. It's going to do a ton of damage over 12 seconds. It's also going to restore magicka to us the entire time it's going, making it great for our sustain yet again. Finally, while slotted, it's just going to increase our damage by 3% whenever we're on this bar. So we pretty much always use this ability on a Necromancer, either this morph or the other one, because of that last bonus, and we always have it slotted on the front bar for that extra 3% damage, as well as some other passives that we get in the Necromancer line that we'll talk about when we get to the passive section. Next, we have the Skeletal Arcanist. This is going to raise a Skeletal Mage beside us that's basically going to attack the enemy every 2 seconds, dealing 3,500 damage to them. This ability is essentially free because anytime we have this ability ticking, we have extra magicka coming in because of one of our passives. So this ability is doing lots of things for us because of our passives. One is it's increasing our sustain anytime it's up. 2 is it increases our penetration anytime it's up, right? We'll get into the passives again later, but just know that this ability is doing a lot for us, a lot more than it says when you're reading the card here. The fifth ability on the front bar is a bar buffer. It's Inner Light. I love this ability because it simplifies rotations. It's going to increase your damage simply by being on the bar. You don't even have to use the ability. While slotted, it's going to increase your magicka by 5%. And remember, the more magicka we have on a character, the higher our spell damage, right? Because our spell damage is in part calculated by how much magicka our character has. So anytime something increases our magicka pool, it's also increasing our spell damage. Not only that, but it's going to give us major prophecy, increasing our crit chance. This is the same bonus that we get from our potion. So this is one of the reasons we can use the cheap potions when we're not doing something hard, and we're okay with losing that buff when we go to the back bar. We don't have inner light back there, so every time we go to the back bar, we're going to lose that major prophecy unless we're using those expensive Essence of Spell Power potions. The front bar ultimate is Shooting Star. Shooting Star is another bar buffer and a fantastic damage dealing ult. This calls down a comet that's going to hit the ground and do a ton of damage, just like you would expect a Shooting Star to do. It's also going to generate ultimate for each enemy that we hit with it, which means if we hit a large enough group of enemies, we're going to get half of our ult charge back and we'll be able to use it again really soon. Or if we're fighting a boss and it's got ads and we hit the boss as well as its ads, it's going to give us a bunch of our ult charge back so that we can cast it again sooner. It does great damage, especially for what it costs. And it's the ult that I use anytime I'm running this character solo, unless you want to dip into the Blood Scion ultimate and live that vampire life, then go ahead and put this on the back bar, not the front bar. We want to leave this on the front bar, whether you're using it or not, because of Mage's Guild passives that are going to buff your damage for every Mage's Guild ability slotted. It's going to increase your damage and your sustain. We'll talk about that again once we get to passives, but just know that that's a thing, and that's part of the reason we have these two abilities here. On the back bar, we're going to be using Unstable Wall of Fire. This is a great dot. It's huge AoE damage over time, and it's going to proc our Maelstrom Staff that we're wearing on the back bar. By proccing our Maelstrom Staff, all of our light attacks are going to do quite a bit more damage. We light attack in between every ability, so Maelstrom Staff plus Unstable Wall of Fire equals huge gains in your damage, especially in your light attacks. And if you look at a parse for any magicka tune, your light attacks are going to be either your number 1 or number 2 source of damage because you do them between every ability, which means you're casting your light attacks way more than you're casting any other ability. That damage adds up. So when you're buffing your light attacks, you're actually doing quite a bit to buff your overall damage for your character. That's why we're using Maelstrom Staff. That's why we're running Unstable Wall of Fire here. The next ability on the back bar is Unnerving Boneyard. Unnerving Boneyard does so many good things for the Necromancer, both mag and stam. I love this ability. It's a built-in major breach. It's also going to do cold damage. It's also going to do 50% more damage if it consumes a corpse on cast, and it's almost always going to consume a corpse on cast because one of your blast bones or your mender or your arcanus are going to have died and left a corpse nearby for it to consume, for it to do 50% more damage, right? It already does a great amount of damage, 13,600 over 10 seconds when I'm unbuffed, which means it's going to do quite a bit more in combat. Plus, it's going to get another 50% on top of that. It's a great ability. It's got a ton of utility. It's great for solo play. It's great for group play. You can just basically make sure that everything always has major breach. And because it's AoE, it is hitting everything. This is part of why our AoE damage on this solo Necromancer is so incredibly strong. We instantly apply AoE major breach to everything that we see, significantly reducing their resistances to all of the damage we're going to be putting on them. All right, the third ability on the back bar, one of the most interesting abilities in this build, and probably the one that a lot of people are least familiar with, Blood Mist. We're going to dissolve into a mist, reducing our damage taken by 75% as long as we maintain this channel. However, it's going to cost 1091 magic per second to cast this ability. So if I demonstrate it here, boom, now I'm Blood Mist. Things can still see me, they can still attack me, but as long as I stay in this form, I'm taking almost no damage from them. Furthermore, if I'm near them, I'm hitting them, and that's going to heal me. Whenever I go into Blood Mist, it heals me up to full pretty casually. I don't really have to do anything. If I start getting low, or if I fall behind on heals, or if I see a huge source of damage incoming and I just want to play it safe, I simply pop Blood Mist and hang out in Blood Mist until it's safe to come out of it. Or you could even, pop your mender. So one of the things you can do is throw down all your dots in a scary situation, right? Get everything ticking, and then you can just pop in a Blood Mist form and let your dots and your ads do their work before coming back out again. Now again, it is going to be devouring your magicka. Fortunately though, we have great sustain on this character, so you should always have plenty of magicka in reserve to pop this ability when you need to. The fourth ability on the back bar is Spirit Guarding. It's another ability that I absolutely love from the Necromancer because of how much utility it has. Yeah, it's healing you for 16 seconds, so it's a very healthy 16-second dot, right? It's healing us for over 4,000 health every 2 seconds. That's massive, right? That's a quarter of our health every 2 seconds. Just boom, boom, it's hitting us. But not only that, this ability is also giving us 10% flat damage mitigation, right? It's reducing the damage we take by 10%. That is huge in this game. So it's a huge heal. It's giving us massive damage reduction, and then it leaves the corpse on the ground, which is going to be useful for our Unnerving Boneyard and our Mystic Siphon. which both need corpses to perform at their best. Next on the back bar, we're going to be using channeled acceleration. This is a fun ability from the Sigil Guild that is going to increase your move speed for 12 seconds. It's one of the longest move speed buffs in the game. It's also going to give us minor force. Minor force is going to increase our crit damage by 10%. So every time we crit, we'll be doing 10% extra damage, and we're going to be critting a lot on this guy. Finally, for your back bar ultimate, this is a bit flexible. You can run the tried and true Glacial Colossus if you would like a nice AoE ability that's going to put out significant damage and inflict major vulnerability on the enemy, causing them to take another 10% damage from you. It's also a nice bar buffer once you get down into execute. You could use this ability, or if you're watching this video and you were excited by the idea of being a vampire, then go ahead and live that vampire life. Use the Blood Scion and take either of the morphs, whichever one looks more interesting to you. It's going to be a fun ultimate. It's going to be great for whenever you get in a pinch. You're going to be able to pop this ultimate and basically become indestructible for a while. There's not a bad version between the two, and since we're using the shooting star for raw damage output anyway, on the back bar ultimate, you can have some fun. You can pick something like Blood Scion and either of its morphs to basically have that get out of jail free card, become a giant vampire, and, you know, live your best life. All right, as for our rotation, we're going to pre-buff with our buffs and our summons, right? So we're going to start with channeled acceleration because it lasts the longest. So we pop channeled acceleration, then we cast both of our summons, our Skeletal Arcanist and our Spirit Guardian. Then we're going to cast Stalking Blast Bones. And while Stalking Blast Bones is deciding to explode on your enemy, you're going to go ahead and cast Unstable Wall of Fire and Unnerving Boneyard. This is going to buff your light attacks and start hurting the enemy. This one is going to inflict them with Major Breach, which means when that Blast Bones hits them in a second, they're going to take significantly more damage from it, as well as all of the other abilities that are going to be hitting them. And then you cast Blast Bones again, get your Mystic Siphon up using the corpse that was created by your Blast Bones. And now, at this point, all your dots are ticking, all your summons are up, and you go into a dynamic rotation, which is basically Blast Bones and then Blood for Blood twice. Blast Bones, Blood for Blood, Blood for Blood, Blast Bones, right? You're going to just do Blast Bones and then 2 abilities. And as long as all of your summons and your dots and your buffs are up, you're just going to use Blood for Blood. Anytime one of these summons, dots, or buffs fall off, then switch to that ability, recast it, and then go back to casting Blast Bones and Blood for Blood until one of them needs to be replaced again, and then just replace your Blood for Blood with whichever dot or buff or summon has fallen off. Use your Shooting Star ultimate anytime you would like some huge burst damage, or use that back bar Blood Scion or Glacial Colossus whenever you would like. All right, now let's briefly skim over the passives and why they are making your character so strong. In Elder Scrolls Online, your character's power is derived by the sum of all of your passives, and understanding what your passives are is going to allow you to play your character twice as good as a person that doesn't even realize these passives exist because they never took a couple of seconds to read them. Don't feel bad if that's you. We're all guilty of this in pretty much every game we play. And that's why I'm here. All right, the first passive is reusable parts. Basically, this is going to make some of our abilities cost 50% less. It's just good for our sustained. It's a good one to level up as soon as possible. And the next one is Death Now. This was heavily nerfed. It used to be such a powerful passive. Now it's there, and it's still better than nothing. It's a nice extra crit chance and execute for every one of the abilities from this line slotted on the bar. So presently, we have 3 abilities on the front bar that are from the Gravelord line, which means we get a 12% bonus crit chance in execute. It's not nearly what it used to be. It used to be 10% per ability, so that would have been 30. Now it's 12%, you know. But to be fair, the Necromancer is still easily one of the best classes in the game, and we really don't have any room to complain about this. Next, we have Dismember. While the Gravelord ability is active, your spell and physical penetration are increased by 1500. This is why we want to make sure we always have a Skeletal Arcana sub. This is going to be giving us an extra 1500 penetration for free. Penetration is very important, especially in solo where you're very rarely hitting the pen cap anyway. This is basically just saying, hey, you're doing more damage anytime one of these Gravelord abilities is active. Next, we have Rapid Rot, which is going to increase our damage done with damage over time effects. So essentially any dot that we have on our bars is going to do 15% more damage. This is one of the reasons that Magic and Necros are also referred to as dot crows. All right, next up we have the Bone Tyrant passives. From this line, we're going to take Disdain Harm, which is going to reduce the damage we take from dots by 15%. And we're going to take Last Grasp, which is a free 1,250 health. It's one of the reasons that Necromancers have more health than other classes. This bonus is really nice, especially at low levels when you're trying to get your health pool up. and you don't have a lot of champion points yet. Next, under Living Death, the important passive to take note of is whenever you use an ability on a corpse, you generate 10 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 16 seconds. So, you know, this is an extra 10 ultimate every 16 seconds. This is one of the reasons that necromancers can generate ult faster than any other class. It's a combination of this and another ability that we're not going to be taking advantage of in this solo build, but we are going to be taking advantage of this passive. And finally, Undead Confederate. While you have a Blast Bone, Skeletal Mage, or Spirit Mender active, your magicka and stamina recovery is increased by 200. Now, this is a great reason to have our Skeletal Mage or our Mender up at all times, right? That's going to be increasing our magicka recovery by 200. 200 is a lot of magicka recovery. Heck, that's half the recovery we're getting from our food, right? So that's nothing to laugh at. We are going to be using a destruction staff, so we're going to be grabbing all the destruction staff passives. These are basically going to increase our sustain and our damage. Pretty straightforward there. In this patch, they've gone ahead and changed armor passives once again, which means you can go either 7 pieces of light and 0 pieces of other armor, or you could go 5 pieces of light and 2 pieces of medium, or 6 pieces of light and 1 piece of medium. I'll leave the choice to you. Just know that all 3 are going to work, and all 3 are going to work really well. As a new meta is formed, I'll update the written guide with whichever one is performing the absolute best. So if you really want to know which one is performing the best, just take a look at the written guide and see how I've laid out the armor there. And I'll be sure to update that as this patch goes on. Under Vampire, we're going to grab Feed, and this is what determines how many stages you want to take. In part, because there are some bonuses and debuffs, frankly, that come with being a high level vampire. For every stage of vampire that you get, you're going to take more fire damage, and non-vampire abilities are going to cost more. We are using quite a few non-vampire abilities because, well, they're so effective. So we don't want to have too high of a vampire level. It's going to make our sustain too awful if we do. So we're taking Vampire 1, and we're just going to sit there. The great thing about Vampire Stage 1 is there's 0 maintenance involved. You just become a vampire. You're Vampire Stage 1. You don't have to go out there and manually feed on people to get it up to the right stage or eat items to knock it down to the right stage. You'll just be Vampire 1, and you don't have to worry about it. And you get to take advantage of vampire abilities, and you get to take advantage of Darkstalker, which is going to ignore the movement speed penalty when you sneak and decrease the time it takes to enter sneak by 50%. This is great for single player content. It's great for thieving. It's just got a lot of fun little uses. It's a nice one to have. Blood Ritual is going to allow you to turn someone else into a vampire by walking up behind them near a vampire shrine. This is hopefully how you became a vampire. You don't need to pay people to become a vampire. If you go to a zone with a vampire shrine and ask for a bite, people are almost always willing to help you out with that. Likewise, you shouldn't need to purchase vampire from the Crown Store for the same reason, right? It's really easy to get in game. All you have to do is go to the zone, talk in zone chat, ask for some help, ask for a bite, and this community is fantastic. Someone will give you a bite. In the Undaunted Guild, we're going to go ahead and grab both Undaunted passives when we get a chance. These are really powerful passives. They're going to increase your max health, mag, and stam, and they're going to increase the number of resources you get back whenever you grab a synergy, which is great for our sustain, you know, especially in group content. By the way, this build will work fantastically in a group content. Just make sure to take off the Ring of Pale Order and put on a full monster set. Or just check out my group version of the macro on the same website that this one will be listed on. Under Assault, we're going to grab Continuous Attack. This is going to make it so you move 30% faster anytime you're on a mount. It's a must-have passive for everybody. It's really easy to get. You don't actually have to fight anyone. I have a guide on how to get it in my complete leveling guide. It'll tell you how to get Continuous Attack without fighting a single person. It's great. You got to get it. You'll be glad you did. And of course, we're going to grab all of our racial passives. And then last but not least, Medicinal Use level 3 from the Alchemy line. This is going to make it so that your potions last as long, or, well, technically 2 seconds longer than the cooldown. So the potions will last 47 seconds. The potion cooldown is 45 seconds, which means there's a 2-second overlap where you have 2 extra seconds after the potion falls off to cast it again before you'll lose the buffs you're getting from your potion. And if you recall, the buffs are significant, right? We're getting 20% increased spell damage. That is huge, right? We're also getting increased crit chance, and we're also getting mag and 30% increased mag recovery anytime that potion is ticking, or in other words, for 47 seconds after we press the potion. 100% uptime on potions is very, very helpful. All right, as for the champion points, I'll put those in the written guide linked in the description below. It's just a lot easier to read them that way, and that way I can update them in case there's any changes. They are changing champion points a little bit this patch, and I'm curious to see how that's all going to work out. So if you are following the builds, be sure to check back in on it, especially 1 week or 2 weeks after the patch drops, as I'm updating the champion points to make them as effective as possible based on what the community has learned about them since the patch dropped. All right, guys, and that's it for this video. If you found this video useful, please be sure to like and sub so that you can be alerted to more Elder Scrolls Online content. And if you ever want to hang out with someone else who loves ESO, be sure to swing by my stream over at twitch.tv/luckyghost. As always, I hope you have a fantastic day, night, or evening, wherever you might be, and I'll see you in the next video.